I've actually broken this down. I was thinking about it the other day, and I've broken this down, and it's like, so fear is quite literally the body's response to what we perceive as danger. And the response is adrenaline gets pumped, a bunch of endorphins go into your system, because adrenaline actually hurts you. So the endorphins go in to make you feel better about everything moving. And you have the fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah, and that's the problem. We go into our reptilian response, and maybe even our mammalian response, but we don't go into our rational response.
Right.
When it comes to fear, and that is a false evidence appearing real, and it's the false evidence part of fear. I think that is maybe part of the biggest discussion, because it's what we ascribe to something that creates the fear. And why do we do that?
Right. Well, I mean, I'm actually going to investigate fear a little bit more before we get into false evidence appearing real, because it is really, really important that we go there. And it's actually almost a long discussion in itself. So I don't want to hit there before I hit a couple more points. The point that I'm making here is, like, what are we afraid of? What are our what I would say base fears? And I came up with only two as our root fears. And it's the fear of death being the major one, and the fear of pain being kind of a secondary one. And the reason that I separate those two is because it for me, when I think about how my fear structure works, I go, what am I the most afraid of? It's like, initially my fear response is, I'm afraid of dying in some form or another, right? So it's just like, I'm afraid that I'm going to die. The old hindbrain goes, oh my God, you're going to die. It's time to move forward and get this done, or freeze, or whatever it is, however I respond.
So the fear of being socially ostracized would be the fear of the social connection? The death of the social connection, rather? Yeah,
well, basically the fear that you will be cut off, and you will be cut off from your resources. And if we follow that route down to the root of fear of death, right? We can
death,
say,
well, yeah, okay.
Yeah. We can say that, yeah, exactly, that intrinsic connection, that need for connection that we have as people, is so strong that we would fear losing those connections, for fear that we won't get sustained, with all the stuff that we need from that.
Whether physically or emotionally, or whatever. Okay.
Well, but the reason that I say pain too is because pain buys into this. When I look at my fears, I go, okay, fear of death being the root cause, right? Like, of our fear as just mammals, right? We are protecting ourselves from death, right? Now, pain comes before death, and I found that, me personally, one of my major fears is, I'm not so much afraid of death,
but a painful death.
But I'm more afraid of pain than I am of death.
Yeah. Well, and I get that. A lot of people will say, they choose not to do chemo or whatever because the quality of life. They have a short period of pain versus the prolonged period of pain. Just get it over with. Just let me die.
Right.
And of course, if we believe, and I do believe, that there is something more beyond death, that this is just a way station, so to speak, then I don't really have that same. I don't have a fear of death. I have a fear of dying, perhaps. Well,
so one of the things that I found is, if you have, like, rationally, absolutely, I think that rationally we can rationalize pretty much anything. We can say, if you believe in a higher power, or you believe in life after death, or you believe in nothing after death, or however that works, for an individual, that you can say, oh, well, I'm circumventing my fear of death. But remember that our mammalian brain does not identify that way. Like our lower brain functions only identify fear, danger to person, meaning danger to person leading to death. And so even though rationally in my mind I can say that I'm not afraid of death, that mammalian part of me is still there, right? That fear is still present in our lives. We just sort of are able to sort of short circuit it to a degree.
I get that, yeah. Now, hopefully we are not reptilian, we are not strictly mammalian. We have higher functions as humans than those two real categories. Of course, we are part of them, especially if we believe in the evolution that we came from ooze, and that we really are reptilian as well. But we have a higher functioning part of us that can supersede, and we don't consciously come in contact with that part often enough to override our fears. But it is a tool that's definitely there, and that's called our higher functioning part of our vagus nerve, and just our higher ability to rationalize and know and differentiate.
Right. Well, and I agree with you, because there's certainly fears that I like, what I would consider irrational fears that I've overcome in my lifetime. A fear of heights, which is a sort of a base fear, really. It's I'll fall in.
That's not necessarily an irrational fear,
right? Like, exactly, but it can be irrational if that fear of heights is fear of falling from a 6-foot height as opposed to falling from 1,000-foot height, right? So when I take a look at, I've been able to overcome fears in my life. And to switch my thinking around the fear. And it's not necessarily that the fear itself stops. It's that I recognize it as it comes up and I reprioritize it so that it's not taking over my system.